MCT East Asia 2026 is officially over, and the pressure around this tournament was honestly pretty massive. This wasn't just about lifting a regional trophy anymore. This event decided who gets the cleanest path towards MSC 2026 at the Esports World Cup and who now has to survive the brutal wildcard stage first. One team walked away with the direct main stage slot and complete momentum heading into MSC, while several other contenders were pushed into a far riskier road where a single bad series could instantly end their international run before the real event even begins. Welcome back to Mobile Legends News. MCT East Asia 2026 marked one of the biggest milestones yet for the new MLBB Champions Tournament ecosystem introduced by Moonton Games. The tournament brought together top representatives from China, Mongolia, Japan, and South Korea in a regional showdown that carried enormous international implications. Unlike older qualification systems, this format made every series matter because only the champion secured a guaranteed main event spot at MSC 2026. Meanwhile, the remaining qualified teams were sent into the wildcard stage, where competition becomes significantly more unpredictable and dangerous. Coming into MCT East Asia 2026, most of the spotlight was immediately centered on China. Ever since Moonton Games started heavily expanding the MLBB ecosystem in the region, fans have been waiting for the moment China would fully establish itself as a consistent international powerhouse. Because of that, expectations on teams like GZG and YBG were honestly enormous before the event even started. A lot of viewers expected China to dominate the tournament mechanically, but what really stood out throughout MCT EA 2026 was how disciplined their macro game looked compared to previous East Asia events. Instead of relying purely on aggressive skirmishing, Chinese teams looked far more patient around objective control, lane pressure, and setup timings. You could clearly see teams prioritizing wave management before major neutral objectives instead of constantly forcing risky fights. That may sound simple, but it shows how much the region has matured competitively over the last year. At the center of the conversation was GZG. Throughout the tournament, they consistently looked like one of the most complete rosters in the bracket. Their rotations were clean, their drafting looked flexible, and most importantly, they rarely looked panicked during slower games. In older East Asia tournaments, many teams would collapse once early momentum disappeared. This time, GZG looked comfortable playing both fast and controlled styles depending on the matchup. That adaptability is a huge reason why many fans now see them as one of the region's strongest hopes heading into MSC 2026. Meanwhile, YBG entered the tournament with massive pressure as well. Chinese MLBB fans expected them to prove that China's depth was becoming legitimate, not just dependent on one or two strong lineups. While there were moments where YBG showed impressive mechanics and coordinated teamfighting, they also experienced the inconsistency that still seems to affect several developing East Asian teams. Some games looked incredibly polished, while others exposed communication and tempo issues once opponents disrupted their early plans. But arguably, the biggest plotline of the entire event came from Mongolia. A lot of international viewers underestimated the Mongolian representatives before the tournament started. Historically, Mongolia has not received the same level of global MLBB attention as regions as the Philippines or Indonesia. However, MCT EA 2026 became a huge statement event for the region because teams like the Mongol Z and the Huns showed that Mongolia's competitive growth is very real. The Mongol Z especially became one of the most talked about teams during the event. Their playstyle combined aggression with surprisingly disciplined map movements, which caught many opponents off guard. Instead of playing recklessly, they frequently forced calculated fights around vision advantages and positional pressure. That balance between confidence and structure made them extremely dangerous throughout the tournament. One thing that stood out with the Mongol Z was how decisive they looked during mid-game transitions. In many developing regions, teams often struggle once laning ends because macro coordination becomes messy. But throughout MCT EA 2026, the Mongol Z repeatedly showed fast decision-making around turret traits, jungle invasions, and lord setups. Even when games were close, they rarely looked mentally shaken. The Huns also earned significant respect from viewers because of how fearless they played against more established organizations. Their willingness to contest objectives aggressively and challenge stronger reputations created several tense moments during the event. Even in losing situations, they constantly searched for comeback opportunities instead of slowly bleeding out on the map. That mentality made them one of the tournament's most entertaining squads to watch. Then there was Sunset Ravens, who represented another part of the evolving East Asia scene. While they may not have entered as tournament favorites, they showcased how much strategic understanding across the region has improved overall. Their drafts often emphasize scaling, utility layering, and coordinated engage timing rather than pure mechanical outplays. That shift reflects a larger trend happening throughout East Asia right now. Compared to previous years, MCT EA 2026 looked far more macro-focused overall. That was honestly one of the clearest differences visible throughout the tournament. Older East Asia events sometimes felt chaotic, with teams overcommitting to fights constantly and ignoring map efficiency. This year looked completely different. Teams were tracking cooldowns more carefully, contesting vision more intelligently, and placing significantly greater importance on objective setups. You could also see how the global MLBB meta is influencing East Asia's development. Teams now understand that winning modern MLBB is not just about flashy mechanics anymore. Timing, positioning, lane control, resource allocation, and drafting flexibility matter just as much at the highest level. MCT EA 2026 showed that East Asian teams are learning those lessons rapidly. Another major reason the tournament felt so intense was the structure itself. Under the new MCT ecosystem, East Asia still has a limited guaranteed access to MSC compared to larger powerhouse regions. That reality creates enormous pressure because every placement matters heavily. Only the champion secured a direct main stage slot, while other qualified teams were forced into the wildcard path where survival becomes far less certain. And honestly, the wildcard stage is terrifying. At MSC, wildcard teams often face unpredictable international matchups immediately, meaning strong regional performances can still disappear instantly because of one bad best-of series. That pressure changes how teams approach tournaments like MCT EA entirely. It is no longer enough to simply qualify. Teams desperately want that direct main stage berth because it provides stability, preparation time, and a much safer tournament position overall. You could feel that urgency throughout nearly every playoff series during MCT EA 2026. Draft adaptations become sharper, objective fights become slower and more calculated, and teams clearly understood how much was truly at stake. For many players, the tournament represented the difference between entering MSC as a legitimate contender or entering as a team fighting just to survive the opening phase. By the end of the event, one thing became very clear. East Asia is improving far faster than many fans expected. The region still has work to do before consistently challenging traditional MLBB giants like the Philippines and Indonesia, but the gap no longer feels impossible. Teams are becoming more organized, more disciplined, and far more strategically aware than in previous years. And if MCT East Asia 2026 proved anything, it is that the road to MSC is becoming increasingly dangerous for everyone. MCT East Asia 2026 ended up being far more important than just another regional MLBB tournament. It became the first major test of how East Asia fits into the new global competitive ecosystem created by Moonton Games. While China currently looks like the region's strongest representative through teams like GZG, the tournament also proved that Mongolia, Japan, and South Korea are improving rapidly. The overall level of macro play, coordination, and drafting looked far stronger than previous years. and that growth could make East Asia a much more dangerous international region heading into MSC 2026. Now, I want to hear from you. Which East Asian team impressed you the most during MCT EA 2026? Do you think GZG can genuinely challenge the Southeast Asian giants once MSC begins, or is the gap still too large right now? And overall, do you think East Asia is finally becoming a legitimate contender in global MLBB esports? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to Mobile Legends News for more MLBB tournament coverage, roster updates, and esports breakdowns. Till next time.